we've got stocks, we've got stonks, we've got dorks, and we've got Sidney Sweeney on today's Rebel's Edge. Bang.
Did you say dorks and stonks?
Yes, I did, Pete.
I'm just
why. Because, as it turns out, if you take some of those acronyms of the meme stocks that some of us refer to as stonks, then you have what's going on with the donut, which is, of course, Krispy Kreme, and then you take several other acronyms, it ends up being dorks. At least somebody called it dorks.
Yeah, they did.
Welcome back, folks. He is, of course, Pete, and I'm John Nigerian. Appreciate you joining us. Appreciate the lovely New York Exchange because we're on the NYSE. We, being me and my producer here, are here. Pete's somewhere unknown in camouflage, so it makes it even harder to see where he is. Let's dive into a macro, shall we?
Let's do it.
I'm going to say initial jobless claims in the United States falling 6 consecutive weeks, Pete, well below market expectations, which were for an increase rather than a decrease. Well, that suggests the labor market is pretty strong. And I know somebody in the labor market that's doing pretty well, and that's Sidney Sweeney. Because, of course, the actress is now part of the meme stock, stonks, dorks, and all that, because she's representing American Eagle Outfitters, Pete, and people were going gaga over Sidney Sweeney.
I'll tell you, it has become absolutely incredible what's going on with the meme stocks out there and some of the moves, both up and down, let's be honest. I mean, we've had some huge moves to the upside, and then days later or hours later, all of a sudden you get some drops. So people just have to know it's not all roses, but it's been pretty interesting. There's no doubt about that. As far as the macro, John, I'm still focused right in on what's going on between the president and the chairman of the Fed, and we're talking about Powell, and that just keeps on. It's like a tennis game. It's going back and forth and back and forth, but you know, it seems to me like there is an influence there of the frustration, which means at some point, does the president actually make this happen, or does somebody else somehow get involved in this as well? Because I don't think it's just the president. I think there's other folks out there that are a little bit frustrated about how things have gone. And the $2.5 billion as far as renovation, John, I mean, that seems to be a focal point, at least right now. So that I think does have some sort of an impact on the markets.
Absolutely it does, Pete, because the president knows PR better than anybody. I mean, nobody's even close to this guy. So what does he do? He says, I think I'll go over and take a look at the renovation underway, shall I? And maybe, walk through it with a bunch of reporters and things and say, if America really needs this gold wall over here, I'm telling you, Pete, he is going to embarrass Powell to the point where Jay Powell might have to actually say bye-bye. Yeah. Because you don't want this guy, following up on everything you say and saying, well, so inflation's down. Why aren't you cutting? You're supposed to be data dependent, right? Yeah. Well, anyway, as far as I'll take a look at crude oil, Pete, which is moving up by about 1.5% today. It's not exploding, but it's just bouncing in this range. So I'll say fantastic futures. Yeah, fantastic crude oil.
All right. I'm going to give you one that off the usual side of things, which is sugar. And we talk about this once in a while, and obviously what's going on in Washington and all the new different posts and all the rest of it. But sugar was right around 20, John, earlier in the year. It hit 21.50, I think, on the higher end of things. And it's been dropping ever since. And we've been seeing in July where it's just kind of dipping down and dipping down and dipping down. And I think that's something to keep an eye on. It was last I looked, it was around 15.50, something like that, and starting to maybe make a little bit of a move to the upside. and recover a little bit. But I think it's something to watch pretty closely, especially because of the fact that when you look at it, there is a surplus. This isn't like a lot of other commodities that we talk about. This one has been moving around a little bit, and I think part of the reason it's dragged down is because there is such an amount that's out there, and the surplus of it globally that we're seeing. Outside of that, I would just say this: the volatility index always is part of my day. I'm looking at it, John. We're basically planted right there now in the 15s. I mean, it's absolutely amazing how all that panic was there, and now we're sitting at 15.05, down a couple percent today. Are we going to get into the 14s? Maybe. I thought it was a stretch when I thought we'd get into the 16s. So, yeah, we could even get a little bit lower than we are right now.
All right, let's take a look at Tesla. Tesla reported a 16% decline in net income, a 12% drop in sales, Pete. Tesla barely holding on to 300 right now. It's bounced back a little. It's back to 302, but 301 was something that was kind of a line in the sand for some folks. We'll see if it holds, but people just did not like these numbers, Pete.
Yeah, and understandably so, John. I mean, you talked about those declines. I mean, Tesla's not a company that normally is going to get a decline of 12% on one side with the revenue and 16% on the net income. I mean, those are numbers that don't usually come out from Tesla as far as what Elon Musk is able to produce out there. And it's pretty interesting. They're still trying to work on a less expensive EV over there at Tesla as well. The robo-taxi is always a conversation that people are interested in. That's one where Elon Musk talked about, hey, we're going to try to get 50% of the U.S. population able to use these robo-taxis. So there's a lot of things that they threw out at everybody. Looking at it at around 302, like you said, I think the last time I had looked, it was 306. So it's pulled back just a little bit there, but it's sort of sitting right in the middle, John, which sort of makes sense right now for what's going on with Tesla, where they're having a little bit of a struggle. 182 is the low, 488 is the high, and here we sit just around $300 a share. So interesting to see that. But when you miss on earnings and you put up some of the numbers that they put up, it's understandable why there's a little bit of pressure on the stock today.
So it's a day that in Y, Pete, which means IBM is down. When these guys report earnings, they have not been blowing people away with these results. And today's exception, they've had a couple up earnings announcements, Pete, in the last, maybe out of the last 8 quarters, they might have had 2 where they beat or something like that. This ain't one of them. Everything that in this report really was, adjusted earnings in the second quarter. Yeah, they beat analysts' expectations, but revenue going forward isn't supposed to do that. And there's a lot of what goes into the stock market is what you see going forward, and that's not positive.
And the other side of it too, John, it's not only that. I mean, they did beat on some of the numbers, like you said, but that's just the beats that they were doing. And we always like to look at, well, but are they growing? I mean, it's great to beat, but are they growing? And one of the things that I noticed was the software sales, they were pretty light. The consulting revenue was on the decline. So when you look at the numbers, it's understandable why the stock, the reaction is what it is today. I don't know where it is right this moment, but the last I looked, it was somewhere close to maybe down about 10%, something like that. So when they put up numbers that are a little bit weaker than expected, that's going to be what the results are, is a little bit of a pressure of selling. Still like the company, still think it has some upside, but for right now, I think this is one where you just got to be a little bit patient. Let's see how it floats around over the next week or two and see if IBM can make any kind of a move back up to the upside. But you can understand why the sellers are winning today on this one, and that's definitely having a toll on some of the ETFs out there with IBM in it.
How about CMG then, Pete? Chipotle Mexican Grill. These guys have had fantastic quarters and they've had failures. This is a failure. The big burrito chain down 10, 11, 12% today. Second quarter profit and revenue met analyst expectations. So that's a meet, not a beat. And same store sales, though, were down again, Pete. And that seems to be what a lot of the Wall Street crowd is focused on.
Yeah, it absolutely is, John. And for Chipotle normally doesn't just meet, they usually beat. And this stock usually around the catalyst of earnings tends to usually beat enough that this stock actually really rips to the upside. Well, that's not what we're seeing today. And those, as you said, those same store sales declined about 4% year over year. That's not a good sign. And then they projected that their comp sales would be kind of flat. So when they're looking out to the future, they don't see a lot changing from what we're seeing right now. And this is not what usually happens with CMG. Chipotle has been one of these great names for a long time. I know that they changed out the CEOs not too many, couple years ago or so, but he's had a really nice run. But for right now, they're sort of struggling. And maybe, John, if you really think about it, when you go to a Chipotle, think about the price, the cost that you're actually paying. And I don't think a lot of people realize, we all consider it sort of that quick food, right? Or fast food, if you want to call it that. But the cost there is a significantly more than a lot of the other places that are out there, some of their competition, whether it's burgers or tacos or whatever it might be. I think when you look at the difference in prices, I think right now they've put themselves in a position where when you walk out of there, John, it's 12, 13 bucks. I know that doesn't sound like a lot to a lot of people, but you go to a Burger King or a Culver's or a whatever, and you're coming out of there paying $7 or $8. So, there is a difference there when people are trying to be a little bit more frugal.
Well, here's one, Pete, that had an interesting bit of news that we wanted to share with all of you. SunRun, symbol is RUN. It's the nation's largest provider of clean energy as a subscription service. Now, of course, they did get hurt when the big, beautiful bill got passed, and there weren't the same supports that many of these companies have come to expect. But they partnered up with somebody who knows a thing or two about solar power, and that would be Tesla. So a partnership for retail electric with Tesla and their wall power units and all that. This looks like a pretty good deal for them with a company that even though he has his issues with the president from time to time, he has nonetheless just done a magnificent job of figuring out these Tesla wall units and putting the solar as part of the Tesla story.
Yeah, and this kind of a merger, if you want to call that partnership, whatever you want to call it, John. I mean, over the last month, you take a look over at SunRun, it's actually up 46%. Now, today it popped all the way up to 12, gave most of it back. Shoot, last I looked, it was maybe down 1%. But I think it makes a lot of sense on what we're seeing right now in terms of what Run and Tesla together could probably do. And it's interesting because the real focal point right here is Texas. And they're talking about over 100 retail electricity providers are in Texas. So they're addressing that, right, going right after it. It creates a lot of opportunities for folks. And I think this is a very interesting partnership. I think it should be pretty bullish in the long run for this name, but we'll see. Today it had a nice pop, like I say, that was not sustainable, but we'll see what it ends up doing over the next few weeks, because I think this is, or months, I should say, because I think this really makes a lot of sense and gives people the opportunity to maybe including selling back that energy, John. And that's one of the pieces of the puzzle too, where it's not some sort of a game where they're going to try to hold you back. They're going to give you opportunities to be able to sell that for what's really a fair price.
True. Well, how about a little sports, Pete, to wind things up for the week?
Yeah, we have to hit a little sports. Let's start off with the video here. Now, this is pretty classic. Now, you're looking at this, the mistake on the lake. There it is, the Cleveland Browns. You see the far right of the screen? That's a cameraman. And as we found out later, thank goodness it wasn't the camera. It was the camera off of like an Apple phone or whatever it was, because but look at this poor
Look at him.
He's trying to take pictures of the new look, Cleveland Browns, and he falls into the water. Oh, that poor son of a gun. By the way, one of the former coaches of the Browns, John, Bill Belichick, and I thought it would be kind of fun. The guy never coached college, always in professional football, never coached in college until now. And so now, and his first hire, as we've talked about, was his general manager, which I think was brilliant on his part. But some of the things that are, everybody who knows and follows him knows that he's won 6 Super Bowls as a coach. He's got an unbelievable resume at the NFL level, but he doesn't have a resume at the college level. So here's what he's already done, John, and I find this really, really interesting. They have 70 players are on the roster that were not on the roster last year. So that gives you an interesting sort of a look at what he's done and how quickly he has changed. He's grabbed 40 different players off the portal, and 30 of the traditional recruits got their scholarships as well. So being pretty active out there and taking advantage of what he can and using his NFL experience to be able to go to college. Because you know what, John, you and I have talked about this. College football has really become the NFL. You got general managers now. You've got NIL money, which is what your payment system is for these guys. And obviously now, with all the money that is flowing in back to these schools, $20.5 million, I think, each to the big schools are getting that back because of the past. So interesting to see how he's approaching this, John. So my question to you is, in 1 year, can this guy actually turn this thing around? Can he actually maybe win the ACC? I mean, it's not that crazy, I don't think. But what do you think?
Until I see the players play, neither of us will know, of course, Pete, until then. But if I looked at it as an observer of what he's done, he's also one of the guys that, of course, NFL draft day, he's looking at the player and deciding, yeah, this is the kind of player I want. I can turn this guy into an edge rusher. He was an outside linebacker, which is somewhat similar, but I can have him standing up. I could have him in a three-point stance. I can have him looping around, all this kind of stuff like he did with Vrabel, for instance, Pete, who is kind of all of that I just described. I think that this is something that I wouldn't bet against him. Because as a judge of talent, he was a pretty damn good one. Even if it meant grabbing a guy who wasn't the number 2 center, number 3 center, or top 10 center in the league, but it was a guy that fit the sort of program he wanted to put on the field. And so, you've got a Teddy Bruschi at linebacker, obviously an All-American, a great linebacker, but became perennial All-Pro in the system that Belichick created there. So I'd say if he hand-picked these 70 players you just described, I think those players will make a difference. Is it enough for them to be able to leapfrog other teams in the ACC? Time will tell.
Time will tell. It's interesting also, John, they have all season and single game football tickets sold out at North Carolina. Sold out. I mean, they really got the right guy when a time where you want more money coming into the system and everything else. I think that they did the right thing. And when you talked about those players that you were talking about in analysis, obviously the general manager has a lot to do with that as well. That's who he hired as his first hire. So Bill's not he might be older, but he ain't stupid yet. That's for sure. I think he's doing all the things the right way to be able to build up that program. And my buddy Bobby Diaco, I'm proud of him that he's on the defensive side of the ball, and I can't wait to go to a game there this year, John. You might have to join me if you want to, because I think it'd be a lot of fun. We might be strolling the sideline with Belichick.
That'd be good. I'd do that.
That could be fun. All right, so we talk about football and finance all the time because a lot of the other sports, at certain times of year, it's just not there. So I'm going to go back to college football, and I'm going to go to the financial side of it, John. What if I told you, with all this money that's sloshing around right now in the NCAA, giving the money and all the rest of it, the NIL raise, all those different things, how about this? Forget the players just for a second. You've got to be able to pay the coaching staff as well, right? I mean, those guys are getting money. You got most of your coaches these days make anywhere between, call it head coaches, $4 million up to, let's say, 10.5, maybe even $11 million, something like that. I think I'm pretty close with those numbers. But how about this? I wanted to just show you something and hear what you have to say. Here's the top assistants in terms of pay that are in sport. Now, some of them are going to be obvious. It's all the same names because it's all the same money. But LSU, defensive coordinator, $2.5 million. Michigan, defensive coordinator, $2.3 million. Ohio State, $2.2 million. Georgia, $2.2 million. Clemson, offensive coordinator, $2 million. Clemson, Washington, Ohio State, and Utah, all $2 million a year for the offensive coordinator. Ole Miss, defensive coordinator, $21 million. Utah, OC, $2 million. Florida State, DC, $2 million. Chip Kelly is the guy at Ohio State. These are pretty gaudy numbers, John. I mean, one of the reasons when I came and started working with you back in 1992, I got offered a couple of jobs. I got a linebacker job with the New Orleans Saints was offered to me. I got offered a few other different things over time. I got an offer to be a head coach and player in arena football, which I did not do. But part of the reason I didn't do it, John, was they didn't get paid back then. Those guys were making, 50, 100 grand, just like the players, that kind of money. But the money that they're making now is pretty close to the players, at least at this high level. It's not just the head coaches, it's assistant coaches. Is it just amazing to you the way it is to me how much money has really just kind of sloshed into what's going on in college and the NFL for that matter?
It's about time that the players started getting a little something better than we're getting.
Well, John, it's great. I know that you have
breaking up
issues going on with the with some of the connectivity, but that's okay. We will be back. We do it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, every day of the week except Fridays at 1 p.m. So we will see you next week on Monday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time.